Another state removes Trump from the ballot. Mayor Eric Adams whines again. Nikki Haley fumbles the ball yet again. And what is the biggest lie told in 2023? Stay tuned, everybody. For the best meat you have ever eaten in your life, go to samsbutchershop.com. Enter the coupon code TTT when you check out for a 10% discount. Hello, everybody. Trailer Trash Tim. How are you doing? Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate you tuning in today. It's good to have you. A lot to talk about, but let me give you a quick update with Marina. She is still with her dad in Missouri. And she's having to deal, she and Benita are having to deal with doctors and the Veterans Administration and home care and, man, you name it. It's quite a challenge, several challenges they're dealing with, but keep them in your thoughts and prayers if you will. And when I have further updates, I will relay them to you. But let's get going. I got a lot to talk about today, and I want to start with this. Probably the obvious headline. I don't know what I'm going with anyway. Maine Secretary of State Sheena Bellows unilaterally decided to bar President Trump from the state's 2024 ballot. So here we go again. It's already happened in Colorado. Now Maine gets in line. And Sheena Bellows decided to ban President Trump from the Maine ballot. On Thursday evening, she falsely claimed that because Trump engaged in an insurrection, here we go again, that he was disqualified from the presidency under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. And this is what she said, and I quote, "I do not reach this conclusion lightly," Secretary Bellows said. "Democracy is sacred. I am mindful that no Secretary of State has ever deprived a presidential candidate of ballot access based on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment. I am also mindful, however, that no presidential candidate has ever before engaged in insurrection," unquote. Now, do I really need to address the insurrection part of this? I've done that ad nauseum. It's just completely bogus. We all know that it's bogus, those of us that are paying attention. So your entire rationale, Secretary Bellows, for taking the president off of the ballot is completely bogus. Of course, there was no insurrection. No need to go back into that again. There was no insurrection. Therefore, this invalidates what you have done here. But what's funny is the internet can be a hoot at times. People started doing a little digging on Sheena Bellows, and they found a few things that she tweeted in the past. Now, it's no surprise, of course, that Secretary Bellows is a leftist. She's, of course, a Democrat. No big surprise there. But this is what she tweeted in 2023, I said? No, it had to be before that. Anyway, this is what she said. "I only lasted 5 minutes more than Brandon." She's not talking about Biden. Her husband's name is Brandon. "Tapping out, but excited to vote for Biden as soon as I can. Let's restore civility." And she tweeted that, and people are just eating her alive in the comments on Twitter. So this is what she is. She's a left-winger. She's a Trump hater. She's not objective at all, although she's in a position which calls for objectivity and the rule of law and adherence to the rule of law. And she's not doing that at all. If you get a chance to look at this girl, one of these days when we get advanced on our channel, I'll be able to use multimedia and I'll be able to put up a picture of this girl. If you ever watch the show The Big Bang Theory, she could be the twin sister of Sheldon, if you remember the Big Bang Theory. But anyway, Trump responded to her. The Trump campaign responded to her accurately, condemning what she's done here. There's so many things being done like this in the country. Colorado removes them from the ballot. Maine removes them from the ballot. California, to their credit, is going to keep Trump on their ballot. But I really think that all this anti-Trump activity may just backfire on those who mean to keep him out of office again. At least we can hope. But anyway, if you want to go look up Sheena Bellows, she's active on Twitter. Don't know how active she is now, but that's where I found her. All right, let me move on. I got to get to Mayor Eric Adams of New York. Now, this is, just basically a rerun what I'm telling you about here, because as you know, Mayor Adams has been whining about the influx of illegal aliens into his city, New York City. As you know, Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, has been periodically loading illegal aliens into aircraft and buses and what have you, and shipping them out to places such as New York City and Chicago, and depositing the illegal aliens there because Texas has been so overwhelmed with these illegal aliens. Not immigrants, not migrants, not guests, not visitors, illegal aliens. This includes Chinese nationals we know about. It includes people from other countries from all around the world, because our borders are so porous because of the treasonous individual in the White House. So Abbott is, this is one of his strategies. It's not what I would do. Of course, there's another way to do this, and I've detailed that on my channel before, and it involves just putting the National Guard, the armed National Guard, on the Rio Grande River and stopping this once and for all. I could do that in an afternoon. Anybody with any sense could do that in an afternoon. But Eric Adams is moaning and groaning, and this is what he said, among other things he said. I won't quote everything he said, but he said this: "We have reached a breaking point. We are no longer able to do that." He's talking about having to house and clothe and feed all of the illegal immigrants, and he finally said, we've reached, and he gave the numbers, how many are coming into New York City, and he said, we've reached a breaking point. We can no longer do this. Somebody replied to Eric Adams on Twitter, and they simply said this: sanctuary cities are now complaining about being used as sanctuary cities. And that is the whole point that I have made in the past, is that cities such as New York and Chicago and others, their claim to fame is they are a sanctuary city. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, that means you can find sanctuary there. The general consensus is, if you're in trouble, you can come to our city and you'll be safe. No matter what you've done, no matter what you're doing, no matter if you're a fugitive from justice, you can come to the sanctuary city and you got nothing to worry about. You'll be safe here. We'll take care of you. So here's Mayor Adams complaining, moaning, whining, and groaning about the influx of illegal aliens into New York City. And of course, that's the point. Mayor, why are you complaining? You're a sanctuary city. That means everything's okay, right? I mean, we can send the whole world into New York City and you'll be glad to take care of them, to house them and feed them and put clothes on them, right? Because you're a sanctuary city. Stop being a hypocrite. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you can't take the illegal aliens, then change your designation. Come out and tell us, okay, we were wrong. We shouldn't have called ourselves a sanctuary city. Now we understand. Now we get it. We've learned our lesson. We're sorry, but we're Democrats. We don't know any better. We had to learn the hard way. This is what happens when you do stupid things. You do stupid things, you get stupid prizes. You see, Democrats, this is typical Democrat nonsense. They got all their theories, which in their mind sounds great. It works great. Oh, let's make ourselves a sanctuary city. Oh, we don't want to exclude anybody. We want to say to the world, come to our city. We're a sanctuary city. And you see what happens in places like Seattle, where they just open the doors to all kinds of activity. You remember the Summer of Love in Seattle? It just destroyed that place. Utter, sheer lawlessness. And New York says, yeah, we're a sanctuary city. Everybody can come on in now. Well, now you see what happens. Democrats it's as Rush Limbaugh used to say, they are symbolism over substance. You call yourself a sanctuary city. Why? Because it feels so good. Because it makes us feel like we love everybody. It makes us sound so compassionate and so loving and so non-judgmental. We don't need rules. We don't need laws. Everybody just come on into our city. You're welcome with open arms. Doesn't care if you're an axe murderer. Come on in. We're a sanctuary city. We're not going to judge you anymore. You know, the problem is we've got too many cops. There's the problem right there. We need less cops and more illegal activity going on in our city. That's what we need. Symbolism over substance. You can't have a sanctuary city, which is to say, you cannot have a society without laws, without rules, for heaven's sakes. Good Lord, parents know this with children. You've got to have some guidelines, some rules, some regulations. You've got to have consequences for bad behavior. And Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, the sanctuary city, is now being hit with a dose of reality. Mayor Adams, my advice to you, sir, is to simply come out and eat crow and say, all right, we have learned our lesson and we were wrong. We should never have designated ourselves as a sanctuary city. I'm sorry. We shouldn't have done that. We realize our mistake now. Please forgive us. We're going to restore our city and we're going to bring back law and order. That's what you ought to do. But until you do that, Mayor Adams, this old boy's got zero sympathy for you, sir. And as far as I'm concerned, Greg Abbott can just keep sending busloads and plane loads of illegal aliens into New York City until finally you decide that you're going to man up and tell the truth. I'm so tired of liberals, these left-wing lunatics. You can't... They make life hard on everybody. You know, we got people out here that are law-abiding citizens, people like me and the folks that watch my channel, by and large, I believe. You know, we play by the rules, we work hard, we pay our taxes, we obey the laws, but we have to suffer the consequences of behavior of people like Mayor Eric Adams, because it affects all of us as Americans, if you're in America. All right, let me move on because he's getting me aggravated. All right, this is a couple of days old, but I hadn't got to it yet, and I want to. You've probably heard that Neocon Nikki Haley got herself in a little bit of hot water. You know, Neocon Nikki, she ain't real good behind a microphone, I got to tell you. She's not quick on her feet at all. She has been exposed more than once. And when she is confronted with a serious, sober, or provocative question, she just gets a case of the humminess, you know, like, well, Governor Haley, can you name at least 3 provinces of Ukraine? Hummina. Well, you want to... It's so funny how Vivek just carved her up like a Thanksgiving turkey at the last debate. She's clueless. She does not know how to think on her feet at all. It's probably because there's not much substance to Neocon Nikki Haley at all anyway. But you probably heard by now that at a recent event, she was asked about the Civil War and what the cause of the Civil War was. Let me read to you from Breitbart. Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley is drawing criticism from her primary opponents and other prominent conservatives after she was asked what caused the Civil War in the United States and failed to mention slavery in her word salad response at an event in New Hampshire last Wednesday night. At the town hall style event, one attendee asked Haley, quote, "What was the cause of the United States Civil War?" unquote. After a nervous breath, she answered the question without mentioning slavery. Now, I'm going to give Nikki a little bit of a break here. I may be about the only person doing that, but I want to tell you what she said and how and why I'm going to be a little less critical of Nikki. I don't want to get knee deep into this, but I've got to some degree to do this justice. Nikki said this, quote, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do, unquote. Can I tell you a little something? She ain't entirely wrong about that. Now, in the current dynamic, it's not what she was supposed to say. It's not what she was expected to say. She was being set up here, and she's not quick on her feet, as I said. Nothing like Vivek. Vivek knocks every question out of the park that he's asked. But she continued and said this, quote, "I think it always comes down to the role of government and what the rights of the people are," unquote. She's right about that. Quote, "I will always stand by the fact that I think government was intended to secure the rights and freedoms of the people. It was never meant to be all things to all people," she said, unquote, she said. But whoever asked her the question would not let her off the hook because he wanted her to say that the cause of the Civil War was slavery. Now, here's Trailer Trash Tim's take on the Civil War, since you asked. Thank you for asking, and I will preface my comments by reminding you that I am a Southern man, right? Born and raised in the South. I am a Georgia boy. We were in the Confederacy. That's true. No, I do not have a framed photograph of Abraham Lincoln on my wall. He's not my favorite guy, for reasons you may or may not be able to guess. But no, I'm no fan of Lincoln. And I am, quite frankly, a little sympathetic to the side of the South in the war, as we call it in the South, the war between the states or the war of northern aggression. Now, I don't want to get bogged down here, but it really needs to be said, as you know, I am no fan of Neocon Nikki Haley, but let's try and set the record straight about the war between the states. It is true that slavery was a component in the war between the states. I know I'm going to get comments down below about this. Go right ahead. That's fine. You can speak your mind on the Trailer Trash Tim channel. I'm happy for you to do that. In my opinion, and I've read extensively about this, I believe it is fair to say that the primary reason for the war between the states was basically the issue of states' rights and whether or not states can operate in the manner they see fit. In my view, it was that as opposed to the encroachment of the federal government into the states' activities. It has been said, ladies and gentlemen, that there is a phrase that changed after the war between the states, and it was said thusly: before the Civil War, it was said, "The United States are." After the Civil War, the phrase became, "The United States is." Now think about that for just a moment. That's a big distinction. Before the Civil War, we had the states. We were the United States of America. After the Civil War, we became more of a federally controlled nation, and that's the way it is today. And that is what the South was pushing back against, and I believe they were right on that. Now, slavery, of course, was an issue in the war. I maintain it was not the primary issue in the war, and there's several reasons I say that. For one thing, this well documented how Lincoln actually felt about slavery himself. And for anybody to position Lincoln as a great liberator of slaves in the South is not entirely accurate, ladies and gentlemen, because Lincoln himself was not necessarily anti-slavery, and that's well documented before the war ever started. Plus the fact that there were slaves in the North, you know. There were slaves above the Mason-Dixon. There were slaves in the Union states as well. Slavery in America, by the way, was really on its way out, and I think it would have gone by the wayside anyway, regardless of the war. Lincoln, in my opinion, saw slavery as something useful for him that he used after the war had already started, of course, and he used it to his advantage. He wasn't an idiot. He was a tyrant, but he wasn't a complete idiot. That's for he was a brilliant man, but not the best fella in my opinion. And I could go on and on and on about that, but I don't want to get bogged down here. So, you know, Nikki is not completely wrong about this. There was something else I wanted to say about the Civil War, and now I had it and I lost it. But anyway, yeah, Lincoln, not my favorite guy. But the bottom line here is this: Nikki Haley is as I said, she's not quick on her feet. She doesn't have great reflexes. She gets muddled really easily when she's asked a difficult question. This is what I wanted to say. Bear with me here. I wanted to say this. It can safely be said that part of Lincoln's motivation for attacking the South, and they did in South Carolina, of course, is, as is almost always the case in war, wars are usually fought over like religion or over money, and it was no different in the Civil War, particularly in the area of money. Lincoln was missing out on a lot of revenue because of port cities like Charleston and Savannah, places like that. The North was largely industrial, the South was largely agrarian, but the South had revenue that Lincoln wanted access to, shall we say, and I think that was a big part of his motivation in that war. But anyway, enough about that. The bottom line about Nikki Haley is she is vapid, she is shallow. I don't think there's a lot of substance to Nikki Haley. I think Vivek has done a tremendous job exposing her as really a lightweight, and I think she just wafts in the breeze one way or another. She just wants to get votes, and it's not going to happen for her. And thank God I didn't have this in my notes, but I think that the idea of Trump selecting her as his vice presidential running mate has been fairly successfully squashed. Don Jr. Basically said if his dad tried to name her his vice presidential running mate, he would step in and stop him from doing so. So he's not a fan at all. All right, enough about Neocon Nikki. I don't want to give her any more airtime. All right, how about this? What is the biggest lie of 2023? The biggest lie of... Kiki's over here looking for Mama. She's not here, darling. It's just me. What's the biggest lie of 2023? I got one for you. How about this? This lie was uttered May 11th of 2023, and here is the quote. I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open. I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open. Do you know who uttered that? May the 11th, 2023. That would be Secretary Mayorkas, the man who is charged with securing the southern border. That's not just a lie. That is a bodacious lie. Our borders are not open. Well, the truth says otherwise, Secretary Mayorkas, the man who should have been impeached long ago. All right, I want to close with this. I have stumbled across a fantastic interview that was done with Doug Casey. Doug Casey is, I suppose he's an economist. He's also a writer and a speculator. He is one of his great quotes is, "It's not enough to work hard and save your money. You've also got to be a speculator." Makes a lot of sense when you think about it. But I want to read an excerpt from an interview that Doug Casey recently gave. The interviewer, this appeared in the International Man, and the interviewer was asking him about his thoughts on 2024. And this is just absolutely fantastic. And I'm not going to take your time to read the whole thing, but I want to read an excerpt from what Doug Casey said. The interviewer said, "What is your take on the cultural developments in 2023? In my next video, I may go read more from this, but I just want to hit this in this video. Doug Casey said, "There are always reactions to major trends. These things are worth noting. But considering the virulence of the woke movement, the reaction has been tepid." He's right about that. "There's always a rear guard fighting for things as they are, and that's wonderful because the wokesters want to overturn the entire culture much the same way as the Jacobins overturned it in revolutionary France, or the Bolsheviks overturned the culture in Russia, the Red Guards in China, or Pol Pot did in Cambodia. The wokesters are potentially just as dangerous because their way of thinking is everywhere in the West. They're similar to the movements I've just mentioned in that they're stridently against free speech, true, free thought, free markets, tradition, and limited government. Nothing new there. But they've weaponized gender and race as well. They're virulent, humorless, and puritanical. They see themselves as the wave of the future, but they've only repackaged the notions of Marx, Lenin, Stalin, and Hitler. My view is that the wokesters hate humanity and hate themselves. They're dishonest, arrogant, and entitled. Look at the current scandal involving the diversity hire presidents at Harvard, Penn, and MIT. They are shameful embarrassments. The fact their boards of trustees installed these fools shows how deep the rot goes. The woke have ingrained psychological, spiritual aberrations. They don't just control academia, finance, entertainment, and the media. They also dominate the state's apparatus, which means they basically have the law on their side. Now, it goes on and on. This man says, where will it end? He says this, and I'll close with this. Wokeism is more than a passing fad. There's a good chance it will end with a violent confrontation between people who have culturally conservative views and those who want to destroy Western civilization and upset the nature of society as we know it. He is exactly right. You've heard the phrase, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's how I look at the woke crowd. They're the squeaky wheel, and they're getting all the grease. And they have completely infiltrated academia. They've completely infiltrated religious institutions in America and the West. They have completely infiltrated, I said academia, but our grammar schools or elementary schools, as I talked about in the last video. They've completely infiltrated arms of entertainment. They're everywhere. They're like cockroaches. And anytime you get people with a voice who steps up and pushes back against them, you just face a wave of backlash, as we see with the people who went to Washington on January the 6th. These were not woke people. These were people, by and large, who love their country and see it going down the tubes and are trying to fight back and do something to save it. And now a lot of them are rotting in jail in the shadow of the White House. Wokeism is insidious, and it is a culture and nation destroyer. And Doug Casey is exactly right with his synopsis. I'm going to read more about him in the coming from him in the coming days, but that's a good start. Listen, give me a big thumbs up on this video if you would, please. I would appreciate that. If you have not yet subscribed to the Triple T channel, I invite you to do so. Thank you so much for that. Everybody give me your comments down below on what we talked about today. I'd love to hear from you. Hey, we are barreling down to a brand new year. Looking forward to it. 2023, probably not the best one on the record, right? This is Trailer Trash Tim. Thank you so much for joining me today, everybody, and I will see you very soon.